Hello there, Doug Redmond here, and what I'm going to be talking about is a application I wrote. It's called the Design Editor for Custom Objects, or Deco for short. And in a nutshell, what Deco does is it allows you to define your own user interface for custom object operations. And what's great about this is you don't have to know how to code. You can just write up the user interface, and Deco will hook it up to Vault for you. It's probably best if I just kind of go through an example, and hopefully things will become clear. So let's say I've got a custom object that I've defined. So I've gone into the Vault settings, I've created my custom object definition. I've set up all of the stuff around this. I've got the icon, the category, I've got some user-defined properties that I've created for this custom object. And the category rule and everything's all in place. Now what I want to do is when I go to create a new custom object, I don't want to see the default new dialog because that only has one field for the name. I want to create something where people have to enter in all of the fields up front. So let me show you how we do that with Deco. So I've already installed the plugin. It's pretty straightforward. You just run the installer and it sets it all up for you. If everything installed okay, you should get this Deco menu under the tools. And what I'm going to want to do is create a new user interface. And I have to give a name to this thing, so I'm going to say new task. And what it's done is it's created this file, this XAML file, which is pronounced XAML. And the XAML file, this is a Microsoft format for defining UI controls. And the nice thing about this, well, there's a couple nice things. One is it does exactly what I want here. It lets us separate out the user interface from the programming aspect of it. Because let's say, let's say you don't know how to program. You don't know how to build a custom plugin, or maybe you do know how to build a plugin, but you don't want to spend all of the time it takes to do it. You just want to create your dialogue and then just be done with it. So these XAML files let you define the UI, but you don't have to know how to code. Another really nice thing about it is Microsoft has provided a bunch of free tools for editing this thing. And you can use that to pretty easily construct your own user interface. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio to edit this XAML file. And if you don't have Visual Studio, here's how you get it for free. You go over to Microsoft.com. And you're going to want to look for Visual Studio Express. And we're going to want the 2010 edition. Now there's a bunch of different flavors for this, the Visual Studio Express. I believe all of them will let you edit XAML files. Now obviously if you already know some programming, like if you already know Visual Basic, you want the Visual Basic edition. I personally use the C# edition. So if you don't know what to download, just download either the C# or the Visual Basic. But again, it's free, and for the purposes of Deco, it will do everything that it needs to do. So, okay, you've got Visual Studio installed. You're editing the XAML file inside of Visual Studio. So here's what you see at first. You see basically this kind of blank square thing. That's kind of your canvas to put stuff down. In this part here at the bottom, it's got a bunch of XML data. You don't need to care about that. In fact, I think we can just hide that. I need my toolbar though. Where's my toolbar? Or toolbox, sorry, it's called toolbox. Okay, so what we can do is, these are all kind of the common UI controls, and you can use that to build up your interface. So labels are just pieces of text box. So let's just start building this thing. Another thing you're going to want to see is the properties window. And there's that thing. And I'm going to move my toolbox over here. So the properties let us set various aspects of all of these UI controls. So going to call this task name. So it's just some text I'm putting down. Then I'm going to want some form of input. And we do that with a text box. So we'll just lay that down right there. And this is where I'm going to want the user to enter in the name of the task. And let me just quickly fill out some of these other ones. So the idea is I want all these four properties to be filled out as well. So this first one is just the name field, which is kind of from the default dialog. And then I'm going to add in a bunch of stuff. I don't have to go in the same order, so I think I'm going to want the description field next. I'm going to want this to kind of have a flow to it. Description. Can also just copy some of these fields. Let's do severity next. Now, severity happens to be a pick list. There's a set of values already defined in Vault, so I'm not going to want a text box. I'm going to want something where they select from a pick list. That's called a combo box in Visual Studio. So I'm just going to drag that in so that they can select from there. Let's see, what's the next one that I care about? The due date. So, okay, we're going to just do that again. Another label. And this is a date value, so I'm going to use a different control. It's actually not one of the common controls. It's this date picker guy. And then I believe my last one is a property for the person I'm assigning this to. And that's just another text field. So, dope. Okay. Now, we need some kind of way for the user to indicate that they're done. So we're going to create an OK button here. And let's do a cancel button too. So here's kind of my basic structure for the dialogue. And actually, let me change the background of this thing. One of the nice things about these XAML files is you've got an insane amount of options when it comes to just playing around with these type of things. So, you know, I mean, I can set the background color however I want. And let's get real fancy. Let's do a gradient background here. We'll kind of do some sort of fading from one to the other. Just a lot of options to play around with. I could really get sidetracked if I wanted to, but the idea is, you know, you get this thing looking how you want it to look. But we have to kind of, you know, just putting in these text boxes is not enough. We have to have some way for Deco to know what text boxes go with what Vault properties. So the way we do that is in the properties windows, there's this tag property. What we're going to do is we're going to set that to the Vault property name. So in the case of name, that's the name of the Vault property, is just name. Description is, okay, in this case it's just called description. So you can just put in the display name for the tag, or if you know the system name, you can put the system name in. Deco will hook it up either way. But it is important you get it right. You can't mistype it or anything, or it won't be able to hook the data together. Severity is again just called severity. Due date. Turns out due date was already used as a Vault system property, so I had to call this task due date. So that's what I would put in here. Task due date. And then the last one is assigned to. Okay. Okay, so now there's kind of metadata on these controls, and that way Deco knows what properties go where. You have to do the same thing with the OK and cancel buttons, because Deco doesn't understand which one is which. So for the OK button, you just, at the top there, you get to assign a name to this control. So I'm going to call it OK button. You have to call it OK button. That way Deco knows how to find it. And the cancel button you call cancel button. Okay. So I just save this off. Now we've got our file saved with the UI in it. The next step is we have to go to Deco and we have to say, I want you to use this UI that I just defined for this custom object when you do a new operation. So the way you do that, let me show you again. You go under Tools, Deco, Configure, and this is basically a table. It lists all of your custom object types and lets you plug in your XAML files and tell it where you want to use it. Now in the case of discussion thread, that's a separate app that I wrote a couple of months ago. That already has its own UI. We want Deco to leave that one alone. It's just this task thing that I just defined. That's where I want to use Deco. So I'm going to just take this name here. I'm just going to plug it in because I want it to be here for the new operation. Now you can also define UI for edit operations, and you can also have a custom view tab with your custom UI as well. So I'm actually going to go ahead and fill all of these in. I'm going to say, hey, this UI I just created, use it in all three cases. I'm going to show you what's going to happen there. So first it's going to tell you to restart. Unfortunately, you have to restart in order for all the customizations to hook up right. So just exit Vault Explorer and reopen it. Okay. Going to click New for my task. And notice it did not pop up the default new. It popped up my own UI. So now let me fill in the information. Let's see, here's my pick list. I can select the severity, the due date. I'll have this due next week. And I'll assign it to myself and click OK. There we go. It created my custom object, and it's got all of the data filled in and everything. So pretty easy, right? Not too much work to kind of create your own UI. So let me show you some things about those other operations, the edit and the view. So what I can do is I can go on my custom object, I can right click, and there's now this new edit command. This is something that Deco put in. And when I click on that, again, it'll bring up the UI I told it to use. And if you remember, I just copied over the new. So, so I'm basically reusing the control here. I'm saying, okay, let me go in and update things. So let's say I don't want this assigned to me. I want to assign it to Dan. You can click OK on that, and then it updates things. And again, in Deco, we said we wanted to use this UI to do a view of things. So it created this custom view tab for us. So when we go in and look at view, we see our UI yet again. Now, a couple things about the view tab. It disables all of the controls. You can't do editing through the tab. It just in practice it doesn't work very well because it's too easy for the user to just shift away from the tab, so you don't actually know when to save. So it's best that you do your editing through the edit command. Also, you'll notice that the OK and cancel buttons are hidden in the tab view. So just a couple of differences. Now, let's change things up a bit here, because let's say that for my edit, I kind of like the edit, but I don't want to be able to change the task name. I just want to be able to edit the other stuff, but not task name. So we can do that pretty easily. We can just kind of copy and paste this over here. I've already got Visual Studio running. I can just open him up in there. And since I'm removing stuff, that's pretty easy. I can just take out my control, and we should probably it looks like I have to move everything up a bit. Okay, move it up. Shorten the control size, and okay. Again, it doesn't look that great. Let's just change the background too, just to do something different as well. It's called brushes for some reason. Let's just do a solid color this time. We'll do kind of a lime green color. I don't know. So we'll save that off. We'll go back to Deco and we'll say, all right, I want you to use my edit XAML file. So click OK for that. You only need to restart if you're changing, if you're like hooking into a new command or something. But because we've already hooked things up, we don't need to restart. I can just go to edit, and boom, it's got our new thing. And let's say I decide that I still don't like the background. I want it to be kind of a light gray color. I can just while Vault is running, I can just make that change, and the next time I go to edit, it's got the change already in place. So that's kind of cool. So that's the edit behavior. And for the view, again, we're probably going to want to tweak things a bit for the view. So let's do yet another XAML file for the view case. Like one thing is that this is, you know how this is a date selector? Well, there's no real point in selecting a date because the control's been disabled. Same thing with our pick list. So we can just put those in as text boxes now. And really, text box, technically it's not a very good fit because you can't edit these, but it still works well for displaying things, text data. So I'm going to do task. So we'll get all that hooked up. We'll go back to our Deco configure. I'm going to do the view. Oh, I mistyped it. So now we've got kind of a UI that lends itself more to a view model. And that's it. I mean, that's the basics. There's a couple of other rules as to what you can do. I describe them more in the README file. For example, if you do a new command, you have to supply a name and you have to supply an OK button. Everything else is optional. If you want to do system properties, like I said, name is kind of an exception. You can do an edit for a name, but all of these other system properties like least until and the create date, those things can't be edited directly. So if you try to put those in a new or an edit view, Deco will complain about that. However, if you want to display it in the tab, you can go ahead and do that. So if I wanted to do the create date and stick that into the view, I could do it, and Deco wouldn't complain at all. So you know, just a couple of caveats on that. Like I said, it's explained in the README file, but I think you get the basic idea. You can really quickly create your own UI, and I know what I put here is kind of ugly, but you know, lots of stuff here to play around with, to get everything looking just how you want it. So anyway, that's my demo. I hope you enjoy it.